No, that's not one of Andy Dalton's passes flying through the air. That's our mascot. It's time for the Flying Pigskin Show. Welcome. What a night it was last night at Paul Brown Stadium with Chris Riva. I'm Ken Brew. An action-packed bonus round of the Flying Pigskin today, Chris.
Oh, I wish we had more positive things to talk about, Fred.
Well, you need to download the app.
Yes.
I mean, if you're sitting at home in front of your computer, there's an app. It's called the WCPO app. Now, you download this thing, you put it on your smartphone, and you can listen to us on your way into work.
Yep, you can stream it live.
Yeah, don't watch us on your way into work, but listen to us on your way into work. Streaming live and available for your downloading pleasure later on in the week. We're all time shifted here at the Mighty Nine.
Well, this is like the second edition in 1 week. How you doing, Ken?
Well, coming back Monday, three in 1 week.
3 and 7 days.
Yeah. All right, first of all, the Bengals, I mean, they were horrible last night.
Yeah.
I mean, they just sucked. They were horrible last night. And I've never seen a quarterback. Well, I'm sorry, I'm stealing Mike McCoy's line.
That's
now.
right.
That's the first thing I thought it was the real McCoy.
But there's no way to avoid getting to that subject after watching that.
And I really want to say
game, if you want to call it that.
You're in the locker room. What was the reaction afterward, Ken?
Not good. I mean, the best line in the locker room last night was Jeremy Hill, the Bengals running back, saying the Browns were worse than we thought they were. This from a guy that was benched in the first half.
Wow.
I mean, so not only were they bad, they were stupid after the game. But it was a horrific game. Andy Dalton was just terrible. His quarterback rating was 2 points higher than a dead man's. And to me, I don't understand why the lights come on and this team wilts. I really don't.
So Marvin Lewis now something like 1-9 or 1-10.
It's the only constant over the history of this team being bad in prime
Well, I'm
time.
going to argue you're getting exactly what Marvin Lewis brings to the table.
I know you've said
a 500 team.
Matty,
you're going to argue that Andy Dalton cannot take the next step unless he starts doing it in primetime games first. I get it.
Yeah,
I mean, I get what you're saying.
I've been a detractor of Andy Dalton. You know, it's more just in clutch, but
last night was
that
clutch.
was ridiculous.
It was as clutch as it would get during the regular season.
That was even worse than I thought he could do.
And I think they saw
it was terrible.
They were so. I think they figured out
he got worse.
He was so bad. I think he had a mind-numbing effect on everyone else. There was one sequence there last night where they're going into the wind. Okay, so they're driving towards the end zone that's by downtown, and they throw the ball 3 times into the wind, right? And they're within field goal range, and then decide they're not going to kick a field goal because of the wind. So how can you throw into the wind and then decide you're not going to kick a field goal because of the wind? How do you make those calls?
PJ, I didn't even know that quarterback rating could be humanly possible.
Yes.
10 of 33 for 86 yards.
I don't think anybody really knew that.
Seriously, what's the QB rating's like 4.
Well,
two.
But it was the lowest since when? 68. There's been 4 guys since 68.
1960.
60.
It's the 5th lowest QB rating since with 30 or more attempts, which tells you that there are some games where a quarterback can throw 20 passes and only complete 3 of them. Maybe they just had a good running game or were just terrible in general. But this was a guy who had an opportunity for redemption, especially in garbage time. I mean, there was a drive at the beginning of the 4th quarter that very well Andy Dalton could have picked up 60 yards in 4 or 5, but no, it just kept continuing. And speaking of primetime, the evidence is mounting. It's not just a sentiment in Cincinnati that Andy can't play in primetime. These numbers got flashed at the end of the game last night. Mr. Dalton, in primetime and playoff games, he's not even close to 500. So we were being generous when you said that this is a 500 team with Andy Dalton at the helm. 2-9. He has a quarterback rating of 63.2, 8 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, only 209 passing yards per game, and a 54% completion percentage.
And let's be honest, primetime games usually are against some of the best competition that they can face.
Yeah. Well, they got Denver coming up in December. I posed this question last night on Twitter, and by the way, hashtag Flying Pigskin. You can follow us on that. This is my question last night on Twitter. If the Bengals had a 1 o'clock game, but there was a total solar eclipse, would they then play as bad as they do in night games? You got to think about that. You got to think about that.
There's a stat for that, I'm sure. I'll look it up.
Yeah.
Solar eclipse quarterback.
I was just wondering about that. We got a rip-roaring show today. We're going to get to that in a second, but we have the same poll question as we did last week, Chris. Which division rival do you enjoy the Bengals beating the most? The Browns, the Steelers, and the Ravens. PJ, do we have any metrics on that?
We do, somewhere around here. I think people said the Steelers in majority. I'll look that up and get back to you. But
Nothing like being prepared.
hopefully that last night's game,
Well, can we check the heartbeat of Strotman back there? I mean, are you okay, buddy? We have to talk you off the ledge?
There you go.
Question, right?
there you have it. Yeah,
There you
there's your Steelers.
There you go, Steelers.
No
Yeah, Strotman's okay. He ate like a condemned man in the press box before the
Yeah.
game, so
Everybody
he's doing
does.
well.
Yes. Is it still Beans and Frank?
No.
No, they had good food
They
yesterday.
they actually had food that looked like it might have come from some sort of catering service. And then at halftime, they had, the chili and I don't know what kind of chili they have down there, but it was like, the stuff you would get at a chili parlor. But the pregame meal, Strotman, was terrific, I thought.
It was good, yeah. Carrot cake.
That was the only
probably
thing
my
that
favorite
was good from the standpoint of
That
the
was
Bengals
that was the
performance.
high point of Mike's evening at Paul
Yeah.
Brown Stadium last night. The carrot cake.
You know, I actually game was so bad, and I actually started laughing.
No, there was nothing funny about
terrible.
that.
The term,
they had,
the guys I was sitting with, the term we kept using was disarray.
Disarray.
How does the football team
don't
look as
remember.
good as they did in the first 3 weeks and look as mediocre? And is it injuries?
Hey, 3 of the last 6 games, they've lost by at least 3 touchdowns. Okay? 3 of the last 6, they've lost by at least 3 touchdowns. They didn't play anybody. The Falcons are a completely different team outside.
Right.
The Tennessee Titans stink. The Jaguars stink. The only team they've played
Well, the Ravens.
and beaten are the Ravens. They beat them twice. That's the only team,
And the
the only
Ravens
team
beat
of
the
note
Steelers,
that they've
yeah.
beaten.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to be totally honest here. That's the only team of note they've beaten.
I go back to coaching
That's true,
trends.
yeah.
And it's interesting. After the loss a couple of weeks ago, Marvin Lewis against the Colts, he was like, it was not execution, is what we put them in position. The game plan was in place. He blamed execution of the players. This morning on Good Morning Tri-State, he said, well, the 2 or 3 mistakes we made were exposed and turned into points.
2 or 3 mistakes.
I'm paraphrasing there. He's like, the few mistakes we made. Like, he made it sound like of the 4 or 5 plays that we were out of position, they really
If
capitalized.
he had like
Cleveland was
10
any good,
mistakes
it would have been.
himself.
If Cleveland was any good, it would have been 50-3.
I should
I
say,
don't
I'm
remember-
paraphrasing there. I
don't remember when they've had more rushing yards than passing yards in a game.
Hey, there's another trend, okay?
There you go.
132 rushing yards for Cleveland last night. The Bengals have allowed at least 132 in a game, every game except 2. Honestly, I think any of us could pick up 10 yards in a carry against that defense. Any of us could.
I don't know.
Well,
I'm
there's
pretty slow.
somebody who usually finds a silver lining, but let's see if we're going to put him to the test this morning. Bengals' all-time leading scorer joins us now, Mr. Breach. Good morning. What did you stay up until the game was competitively over or completely over?
It's tough to find a silver lining this morning the way I normally can. It just, man, it was ugly. It sounded like, it looked like a reboot from Indy, the way it went. And, Dalton just, he just could never get the ball down, and they just struggled. It was a huge struggle on offense particularly. And, even the defense was better in that they gave up only 3.3 yards a carry, but there were 52 carries. So if you're running the ball 52 times, 3.3 still adds up to a pretty nice number. And, they ran the ball, over about 2.5 more times than they threw it. That's pretty well dominating the football game. And to your point, you made a point earlier that they could have scored. They could have scored many more points. The defense just did come up with some plays.
The defense.
That press coverage, same thing in Indy, and the same thing happened here. That press coverage, and then they doubled AJ and pretty much took him out of the game, and the other guys just couldn't get free. It was really a struggle throwing the ball, and then when they did, Dalton was
terrible.
all over the place. It was crazy.
Well, I think it was Jim. Jeremy Hill was their horse last night. Considering
Right.
what he did. And he, the fumble he had, it honestly, it looked like it belonged in a circus. I never seen anything. It was beyond. And they wind up benching him. And no disrespect to Rex Burkhead, but they benched their horse, their number 2 pick, for a guy they got like in the 5th or 6th round last year and didn't dress most of last year. To me, it seemed like there were, and I know they got injuries on offense, but it seemed like they didn't have answers for things that went wrong last night, and I think that's part of getting ready for a coach getting ready his team for a game like this. You've got to have plan Bs, and there was no plan B for this team last night.
I think as the game progresses, you have to make in-game adjustments, right? It's like a chess match. It goes back and forth. And for whatever reason, that didn't happen. It didn't happen particularly well in Indy. Jeremy Hill, you're right. That was a crazy fumble. One of the reasons they took him was he was known for not fumbling. So that, the helmet must have hit right on the ball or right on his elbow or something. 'Cause that ball, it was like a pass to Joe Hayden the way it came down. But for whatever reason, the adjustments don't seem to be there and turn things around. And maybe the adjustments they're making for whatever, when you're the one struggling and you know what the other team's doing, well, then you make adjustments to that. Whereas if you're just dominating somebody, it's like you're kind of guessing what the other guy's going to do because what you're doing is working pretty well. So it's just when they get behind and they seem to have this, I don't know, malaise that goes on, they just can't seem to get out of it. I mean, oftentimes you see teams turn it around. They'll play really poorly early and then turn around. Jacksonville last week came back in the second half or the fourth quarter, really. And it's just nothing. There was never a glimmer of hope last night, and that's tough. That's tough to watch, and it's tough to be on the sidelines when it's such a struggle.
Well, the thing that bothered me most about Dalton wasn't the fact that he overthrew 11 guys last night. The problem was some of the passes that you look at and I was saying, what are you looking at, Andy? What are you doing? It's like guiding the ball in the middle of a monsoon wind. I don't know how you can wrap your arms around anything that Dalton did last night and say that was good. The stuff he should have completed. I mean, the short little out patterns and things like that. The ball wasn't even close, and I don't know if this guy is getting better or if he's getting worse. I don't know what you got. I thought for a while there the guy was getting better. Now I'm not so sure he's getting worse. What do you think, Chris?
Well, and that's one thing, right? I mean, the one thing that he is he's been labeled as a winner and he's been labeled as accurate for the most part. And last night it wasn't. And it was evident early on. I thought it was also interesting too, early on with the interception on the first drive, his body language, his reaction on the sideline. All we heard all week is how he could put the last one behind him.
He went over and started complaining to Gresham. Did you see that? I guess he thought that he had missed the route or didn't step in or something. Yeah.
But the ball was all. I mean, it was
right.
That ball.
It was a harbinger of things to come. It was just like they're going to start complaining to each other and nothing's going to go right. And he was just like, "What were you doing?" It reminded me of Kitna and Chad. Remember that? Kitna used to say Chad bailed on his routes all the time.
He was one.
To what you're saying there, these guys have been together for a number of years.
Yeah.
And it seems to be it happens on a regular basis between communication between he and Gresham. It happened. They could have scored a touchdown earlier in the year where Gresham kept going and rather than stopping, and they're just not seeing the same thing, and so that creates a lack of confidence in throwing him the ball. Beyond, if you notice, he always throws in the ball about 10 yards. Anything beyond that, I mean, who is this guy that caught the tight end that caught that ball down the field for Cleveland?
Yeah.
And Jordan Cameron's out. You think, oh, okay, we've got an advantage here. Guy makes a great catch in traffic, and you rarely see Gresham anywhere beyond about the 10-yard mark. When the guy has got unbelievable athletic ability, to me, that's just a lack of confidence there in somebody.
Yeah, Barnridge was the tight end. Played at Louisville, I think. He's been around for a while, but it was a phenomenal throw and catch. Was Dalton benched? I mean, when they brought Campbell in, do you think it was to get Dalton out of there so he doesn't get hurt, or do you think he was benched, Jim?
At that point in the game, I think they were just getting him out. If they were going to bench him, it had to have happened earlier. If they were just going to find something, some type of rhythm, just change it up. I mean, I remember a game in Houston where Boomer was just throwing the ball. I mean, just similar, not as missing as badly as last night. And they brought Kenny in. This was probably this might have been Kenny's last year in '86. And it was kind of interesting because Kenny came out, made some nice plays, moved the team, put Boomer back in, and we were like three touchdowns down. I think we ended up losing by a point. So sometimes just looking at things differently, relaxing, because you want things to happen so much, and you're obviously, as he said, he couldn't get into any kind of rhythm, and I think everybody in the stadium saw that.
I hate to predict games because nobody knows what the health of a team is going to be a month from now. Nobody knows what kind of team is going to show up. This league is resplendent with teams that are going to finish between 10-6 and 6-10. But Jim, I think you need 10 wins to comfortably get into the playoffs. They got to go 5-2 over their next 7 to get to 10 wins. And honestly, I don't know where those 5 wins come from as we sit this morning. I just don't. You got 2 with Pittsburgh. You got to go back up to Cleveland. You got Denver here. You got to go to New Orleans. I think last night's loss was so devastating because that's a home game. You got to win at home. Now they've got a loss and a tie at home. And as we sit here today, Jimmy, as we're into the first week of November, I don't know where 5 wins come from the rest of the way. Do you?
I don't, but you never know. I mean, so we're always surprised, right?
Yeah, well, there's ebbs and flows in the NFL
every week we get
season.
surprised.
Well, this team,
when they get 3 in a row on the road, that's tough. It's not insurmountable. However, they're going to get guys back, and that's great. Well, as you look at this team, what you're fighting for is consistency on a game-in, game-out base. You want to come out and play consistently well. Sometimes the game plan just doesn't work as well as you like. But right now, I mean, this team over the last several weeks, and they're up and down, up and down. You just don't know what you're going to get. And when they're down, it's historically bad. I mean, 135 yards in Indy, 165 last night. That's just crazy.
Yeah.
Jim, you mentioned 1986. This is the first time these two teams have played for first in the division since you were playing.
Right.
It's interesting now what you were talking about. There's a whole generation that doesn't understand what that rivalry really meant when we were kids and when you guys were playing.
Yeah.
You made your poll question, and the Steelers are the team, right? That is everybody's the team that everybody wants to beat here in Cincinnati. If you asked that question in 1985-86, the Cleveland Browns were really, us and the Cleveland Browns were by far the best teams in the division. And Pittsburgh was kind of mediocre through the 80s into the early 90s as they were trying to regroup from growing older with a lot of their Super Bowl guys. And it's interesting. It really becomes who's playing the best becomes your biggest rival.
Jim, thank you for joining us on this Friday. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, fellas. Take care of yourselves.
Yes, sir.
That's a fact I bring up to all Pittsburgh Steelers fans. You guys were bad through the 80s and the 90s.
But I'll tell you what, Greg Little, he said before that game, somebody's going to pay.
Somebody
Wow.
did.
Yeah, it was the fans.
Right, yeah, right. Greg Little, unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, got the ball wrestled away from him late in the game. Yeah, he made him pay.
I know that Catherine was looking earlier, Maddie, and of the top 10 things trending in Cincinnati right now, 8 of the Bengals. Little is one of them. So there's quite a bit of wrath going on.
They got guys on this team. They're not even household names in their own households. I mean, they got a dude. Listen to these guys they had playing for him last night. Nico Johnson at linebacker. Who's he? They have Lemure. I don't think anybody could pick him out of a lineup on Fountain Square before the season began. They had some dude, Tyler Hawkinson. Who's that? I mean, they have, I mean, who are these people?
Here's the deal, though.
Flowers.
Every NFL team
Mike knows.
suffers injuries, and the
He
teams
says
that are
hi to
successful in this league are the teams that overcome the injuries the best.
But I think they like swung by the Greyhound station on the way to the game last night and picked some of these guys up. I don't know half these guys. Marshall Newhouse.
Yeah, do you think?
Who's that?
Well, he was probably having bad dreams last night.
He's got a mother, okay? Would you take it easy?
Paul Kruger was, I think, he just. That's one of the reasons I don't think Dalton. I don't think he could get comfortable because Newhouse just.
You're not going to say that the reason why he couldn't play last night was because what's his name, Andre Smith was out, are you?
I thought Newhouse was terrible.
He was. Yes, he was. But I mean, I don't know any of these guys. I mean, it's amazing. One guy I do know is our buddy Johnny Bag of Donuts, who I'm sure.
Well, wait a minute. I thought we lost him. Is he there?
Oh my.
Did he fade away?
Well, we sort of got
like
him.
the secondary.
Oh, I know. It was funny last night. Remember we always make fun of him with clock management. Remember late when you weren't watching, Chris, you were asleep because you were getting ready for work. But with about 2.5 minutes to go, the Cleveland had the ball, and it was like 14-3, and they ran a play, and it was right before the 2-minute warning, and the Bengals called a timeout. Like they were, and this guy in front of me, it was so funny. He turns around and he laughs, and he goes, apparently they think we're going to hold them and then do something with the ball. We were all just laughing. It's terrible.
You talk about guys. I was sitting in the press box last night. I saw things. You know, you got to really look sometimes in the stands. There were two dudes in the stands with Odell Thurman jerseys on, and they both had beers in each one of their hands. Okay?
Well, that's the Odell Thurman, double shot.
Then there was another guy who had an 85 on, but he had taped over the Chad Johnson, and he had taped over like in gaffer's tape, and he wrote "Houday" on the back of it. So obviously a fan of the mascot.
Now it's a universal. Yes, it's universal.
We have rousted from his bed, or not from it, but to consciousness, Johnny Bag O Donuts.
Johnny B.O.D., good morning.
Hey guys, what's up?
What's that? Is that your blinky you have next to you? What is that?
What is he under, an overpass?
What happened to your picture?
Yeah, turn this thing side. You got your sideways. Turn it. Yeah. What happens if you do it? Oh my goodness. Oh well, you're sort of upside down, but that's fine. It's only appropriate. Oh, you're just screwing it all up. I don't know what you're doing. Just stop doing that. We're getting sick here.
Now, John, did you watch the game last night?
No, I did not. I'm sorry.
I sent him a picture of the game, didn't I? Though
Right.
he
No,
had
that
a
was
still
good.
photo of the game, and
That was
I
good.
was trying to keep him abreast of the happenings, at the stadium.
Brian, I'm friends with Brian on Facebook, and he kind of kept me abreast based on his kind of. I could tell things weren't going well based on his status updates.
So what were you watching last night? Celebrity bowling?
No, I wasn't
Dancing for
watching.
towels? What were you watching last
He
night?
Scandal.
He had DVR'd the Channel 9 weather special, and he was watching that, from what I understand. Yes.
Yeah, okay. John, I do need to ask you a couple of things since you didn't watch the game. What did you think of Andy Dalton's performance?
Well, according to Brian, I don't think it was very good. It seemed like he didn't do very well at all. Is that true?
Yeah, that's. By the way, are you like channeling Ted Kaczynski with the hood? Help me with this.
It's cold here, Ken. It's cold.
In the basement, they
In the
don't have
basement
good
of
heat.
Mom?
Heat rises, okay,
Right,
and it
yeah,
doesn't stay in the
it's a whole
basement.
physics thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Did he just say physics?
Huh?
He just said it's a physics thing.
Physics thing.
Yeah,
Good.
So
So
molecules
you got all your
expanding and
information last night from
contracting.
Brian? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Brian, who is AWOL this morning. Libby joins us this morning.
It's always better when
Oh.
Libby's here.
The lone
Yeah,
nut.
that's right. Yeah, Brian, he was up, celebrating, if you will, and Libby joins us this
What
morning.
kind of celebrating is
Celebrating
Brian
what he-
getting into?
Well, I think it was just a matter of he was doing what you often do when you celebrate, but there was nothing to celebrate.
He was celebrating.
He was drowning his sorrows. Is what he was
Yes,
doing.
yes.
Celebrating
sorry.
procuring cable illegally is what he was celebrating. So you didn't watch the game. It's cold in Mom's basement. You're wearing a hoodie to bed.
Right.
Just life can't possibly be good for you, John.
I'm an optimist, kid.
You're
I'm
an
a
optimist.
half glass full kind of guy.
Yeah.
I think the Bengals are going to come around. I think this is just that if they
See?
don't do good, they never do well in prime time. That's just the way it is. So
They have 7 games left and they got to win 5 to get into the playoffs. You tell me the chances of that happening.
how many?
There's a better chance you'd put the right
You just-
sound bite
you
in
just-
at the end of a package I gave you than there would be in them winning 5 of their last 7.
Chances are good.
You just threw a lot of math at him right there, and I think that just
Well, how
even
many
at
games
3
are
o'clock
left
in the
that are
afternoon,
prime
that's a
time?
tough one.
How many games are left that are prime time?
One.
1.
One? Okay, that's all we got to worry about then.
See,
Yeah.
there you go.
Can you answer my scientific question?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, here it is. If the Bengals played a 1 o'clock game, but there was a total eclipse of the sun, would they then play as lousy as they do in prime time? Your thoughts on that?
Ooh.
No. I'm gonna just go with no.
No, next question.
Yeah, that's easy.
It's the cameras that freak them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, those sky cams and 'cause all that stuff.
Because they're not there on any other normal Sunday.
No, unless it's a Fox game. There's a lot more equipment for games like there were last night. They got 2 or 3. They got I think they got one floats over the field and one floats over each sideline. or
They
something.
had, I heard 50 cameras.
50?
50.
It's a
You
little
only
ridiculous.
needed one to watch that
Somewhere
disappointment.
10 were for beauty shots.
Well, you had one for prime time, and then you had one for his ego,
Right.
and then you had. Johnny, we did have a serious question for you. Somebody tweeted in and wants to know exactly what the pattern is on that wallpaper that's behind you.
First of all, I don't believe you.
I'm on television. How can you not believe me?
I don't know what you would call that. Is there anybody in the room that would maybe have a guess on what that would be called?
Libby?
Why did you call Libby? You know?
Because she never speaks.
But I think that
Yeah,
was
let's
possibly
just
a
start
sexist
around the
question.
room.
It was not a sexist question.
Well, you didn't ask PJ.
Well-
PJ might have that very pattern in his new home with his new
I'm
wife.
actually an expert at curtains these days.
I would.
So if only you had asked.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Well, John, we really appreciate you being here. I know you want to get upstairs and get some Fritos.
Guys, I'm sorry about missing the past 2 weeks. I'm on this new thing where I don't use calendars, and it's making things. I'm getting better at it though. But we'll get there.
Okay. What time do you normally get up during the day, John? I mean, I know that obviously we've awakened you now. What time do you normally arise?
I would say like noon, if left alone. Yeah.
if
I
he
didn't
doesn't
have
have these
people calling in with
festivities,
Skype,
to,
you
yeah.
know?
You know, I often say that you look like Jim Caviezel. You know that.
I gotta look that up because I don't know who that is.
But kind of like laying there like that, you kind of look like a hungover James Franco.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we'll go with that one.
Yeah. You kinda look,
that got a rise out of
Yeah,
him.
I can. If you slapped a little water on your
I think
face.
he thinks the chicks would go for that.
Yeah. Slap a little
I'm
water on your face.
positive of that.
Put a tuxedo on. You could host the Oscars. I could see
Okay,
that.
thanks, man.
Yeah,
And
no,
Libby
Good
could be
guy,
his
Ken.
co-host.
Yeah, but I still, I'd say Franco 2 out of 8, but 8 out of 10, I would say maybe Caviezel.
Okay.
Johnny, thank you.
I think it's better if I just don't even look up Caviezel. Just stick with the ignorance on this one.
You just like saying his name.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Good night, John.
Guys, I love you.
Yeah,
Good night.
okay, great.
Browns coach interviewed just before the game on television on the broadcast last night said we got to be first and physical. They were that.
They
and
were.
it was that's the theme in some of their blowout losses. Is this team not physical enough?
No, I don't think they are, and they did handle the Bengals' offensive line and their defense. The Bengals lost that game in the trenches. They just got blown, and the Browns were starting a center that appeared to be wearing roller skates because he was just getting. There was one play I think where Atkins just blew him up, like threw him up in the air, and he went in and sacked Hoyer. But even with that, the Bengals couldn't dominate the line of scrimmage last night. Dunlap was non-existent. I didn't know where he was. He got hurt, and then he came back in. I didn't see him there. Gilberry, what did he do last night? I didn't see him doing anything last night.
D-line has not been able to
Horrible
get
last
pressure
night.
with the front four.
And then like I said, they had two guys playing linebacker I never heard of, and it's like, what do you expect? I said, well,
Broken
when-
front seven, we
yeah.
were saying.
Catherine Nero, have you heard of her?
I have.
She works
probably
here.
have at a chocolate bar currently.
She works here at Channel 9, and
I'm watching you guys on TV. Yeah, I mean, I do love chocolate, Chris. I don't know if you ever noticed that.
Catherine's with us in the newsroom, and she's checking out social media and what's being said about your Cincinnati Bengals on this Friday. Catherine, good morning.
Oh, good morning. I will tell you, it is not a good morning for Andy Dalton. I don't know if you guys have ever used TweetDeck before, but so it automatically like aggregates all the tweets. So like if a new one comes in, you know, the other ones move down. The Andy Dalton column, I would show you, but there are some words in here that I don't even think we can show on the internet.
How did you
It
get?
is
How did you
flying.
get? How did you get
Flying.
TweetDeck?
Bill Bullock is the, I believe his official title is the official king of all that is holy in WCPO.com, something like that. Anyway, he set it all up, but it is incredible,
Really?
the criticism for Andy Dalton today. And I realize, yes, you know, as the real McCoy says, not the greatest criticism. There's criticism every week for Andy Dalton, some 4 letters, some 5 letters, but today is insane. It is crazy. Not
Anything
only
creative?
that, there's some are pretty creative. I like this one the best. We think Andy Dalton is totally worth $100 million. Signed Achilles Smith and David Klingler. That's one of my personal favorites. But SB Nation has strung together all of Andy Dalton's incompletions. Allow yourself some time to watch that. And then this as well. Not only is Andy Dalton getting just hammered, also 2 others. Greg Little, who said he was going to make the Cleveland Browns pay this week. That did not happen. And then also Jeremy Hill. I don't know if you heard about his post-game comments. I'm going to read them to you. It says, so he was asked about the Browns and how good or bad they were. And he says, they're probably worse than I thought, to be honest with you.
Jeez.
And didn't stop. He then said, they didn't do anything special to me. I mean, respect to them. They won the game, but that's all I'll give them.
Yeah, I mean, this is coming from a guy that was benched. I mean, just stupid stuff. You know what I read last night, though, middle of the game? Somebody tweeted this out, that the Bengals can actually get rid of Dalton after this season.
Correct.
And it would cost them only like 9.8 in cap hit, and they'd have to pay him a $4 million bonus.
The contract, thanks to Colin Kaepernick's contract, and it's kind of structured that way, really leaves the team at little risk for that.
But the question begs, if you're the Bengals and this keeps up, they don't make the playoffs, they don't, 5-2, they don't go 5-2, and Catherine, this is for you as well as everyone else. Would you, if you're Mike Brown, then start seriously entertaining, do I just bite the bullet and get rid of this guy and bring in somebody all over again?
I will tell you a name flying around the old Twitter sphere this morning, Hoyer, because obviously he's doing a fair job up there in Cleveland, but Johnny Manziel's the guy of the future, and Hoyer's in his last year of his contract. So that's been kind of thrown out there a good bit. I don't know that that would be the greatest fit or the best choice, but that is something that people are talking about this morning online.
That is pretty interesting.
What you got to have, I think, anymore is a guy that can get outside the pocket and work. Kaepernick and Russell Wilson would be the most obvious. But I mean, Teddy Bridgewater is doing it.
That's a good one.
What's that?
I'm sorry. I got to time out. This might be the greatest Andy Dalton tweet of all time.
Go ahead.
It's from NFL Draft Scout. His name is Matt Miller. It says Andy Dalton's pro player comparison, and it's a side-by-side picture of Andy Dalton and Raggedy Andy. Both Red Rifles, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah, this is a good one. But that literally was LOL for me. I apologize.
Catherine, you covered sports. If you're Mike Brown, do you bite the bullet at the end of the season and look, we made a mistake. It's going to cost me $13 million to get out of it, but my franchise is worth $950. Oh, by the way, I'm making like $90 million from TV money. Would you consider something like that if this continues?
But Mike Brown doesn't make the same decisions as a regular person.
He's not going to concede.
Right, exactly. He's not
he did that wrong yet.
Quickly.
I mean, Andy Dalton took him to the playoffs 3 straight times. It's the first time.
Well, hold up, Matty.
Mike doesn't ever get away from just raw facts.
But that's
like that.
the reason why this franchise never wins.
He's never going to say. He's going to say, "Look, he's taken us to the playoffs 3 straight
but
times."
But he did concede during the offseason that he preferred Kaepernick over Dalton, and Marvin won out on that decision.
What about Marvin? Why is he?
Absolutely. I mean, seriously, what head coach would be not in the hot seat and every other NFL team in the country?
Well, yeah, we were talking about David Shula earlier about how bad coaches, and he holds the worst record in NFL history with a minimum of 50 games coached. And you know why? Because Mike is the only guy who would keep a guy long enough who was that bad.
Yeah, but
he should have been fired after 1 or 2 seasons.
And who was the GM then? The same GM now.
Right, that's what I mean. It was his first deal. Remember, he went to the same school and he was in the same fraternity. That's where we got him.
Dude.
All right, so they were dropping balloons out of windows at Dartmouth. I mean, that's a reason to keep a guy. But here's the deal. I mean, if you get rid of Marvin Lewis, you're not going to give that job. Why would you give that job to Hugh Jackson? You're not going to give it to him.
And that's probably the collateral damage that you suffer in making that decision.
So you're going to clean house. You got to clean house.
Well, you got to let the guy come in and make his
decision.
Well,
you're thinking we have somebody that is somebody who makes moves like that. That's not
who
we're dealing with at all.
He has gotten better, Matt. He has gotten better, but he's not going to clear house. He's not going to Dalton and Coach Lewis at the same time, or even one or the other. Not this quickly.
Well, Catherine, we appreciate you being with us and staying up on TweetDeck. I can't even install mine. It says I'm not allowed to put it on.
Well, I appreciate being with you. I've got some Halloween candy to eat, so
you do?
I'm going to go do that.
Thanks for
sharing.
Lovely
speaking with you.
Thanks for sharing. Goodbye, Catherine. I got to get TweetDeck. Can you get me TweetDeck?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really? Mm-hmm. I can't put anything on my computer.
Just work on my computer.
No, I don't want to get sucked into that. I mean, I know what's on that computer. I don't want to have my password on that.
I was not responsible for any of those tweets about Andy Dalton.
Well, guys, we went from having the Bengals all-time leading scorer on earlier in the show. Now we're going to bring in the third all-time leading scorer.
One of the Three Musketeers.
Well, okay, yeah. Good morning, Doug Pelfrey. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about you guys?
Pretty good.
Doug, who are the other 2 Musketeers?
They're probably both sleeping. They're probably on in different time zones. Who knows?
Lee Johnson and Greg Truitt.
Absolutely. Yeah, I talked to Lee here just a couple weeks ago, but I haven't talked to Greg in a while.
I bumped into Lee about 8-9 years ago, coming out of a restaurant in Vegas, and he's there with his family. And he looked at me and says, "What are you doing here?" I said, "What are you doing here?" He says, "I'm eating dinner. What are you doing here?" "I'm eating dinner." He goes, "Hey, that's great." That was the extent of the conversation.
All right.
Yeah, good dude. How you doing, Doug?
I'm doing great. I bummed about the game last night. They obviously laid an egg, but other than that, doing good.
If you're Andy Dalton, what do you do today?
I think it's not the answer anybody wants to hear, but you just start over because you can't let what you did yesterday impact what you do today. If he does, it's just going to get worse. I'm sure he's going to hear it from listening on the radio. He's going to hear it on TV. He's going to hear it in the locker room. So he's going to hear it everywhere. So
will he hear it in the locker room? Will it be said to him by players?
You hear it. I mean, when you and it's not it's not just him. At the same time, the quarterback always gets too much credit when you do well. They get too much blame when they do bad. He did. He looked bad last night. I mean, there was a lot of, and part of it's the conditions, but Hoyer was playing in the same conditions. So you just move on, and it's not the popular answer, but as an athlete, that's what you do. I mean, if you compound the problem if you just dwell on it, and just a bad things becomes worse.
Let me ask you a question, Doug. There was a sequence last night where this game was still, I mean, they still were in it. At least from a score standpoint. They're inside, I believe, the 30-yard line of the Browns. The wind is howling. So Jackson calls 3 passing plays into this wind. And then, on 4th down, rather than kick a field goal, they elect to throw the ball again. Why would you throw into a wind but yet wouldn't send your kicker out to kick into the wind? Help me with that one.
Right, and I think that's where, when I say it's not just Andy, I mean, it goes down to play calling, it goes down to execution by the offensive line. What I saw the Browns did is what the Bengals should have been doing. They used 3 running backs. They hit us in the mouth with it pretty much all night, and then they used the play action pass. And when Hoyer tried to throw it, he had a lane that he could just, he could zip it. It seemed like to me that Andy was having to throw the ball over top of people, right in his face sometimes. And like you said, it just doesn't make sense to throw the ball 3 times into that wind, given the situation. I mean, if the plays would have worked, we'd be saying, hey, what a great series. But they didn't work. There was not great calls. I didn't like them, sitting there watching it myself. So I don't have an answer to your question other than that's the train of thought that I'm thinking.
9 players with 13 passes defense. Just wanted to throw that out there. That's an obscene number. Absolutely obscene.
Doug, the Bengals have had an inability at stopping the other guy's running attack. I think there was 169, 170 yards last night. 132 was in the 9 games they've played, 7 times they've allowed at least 132 yards on the ground. That can't be all Vontaze Burfict not being in there, can it?
Well, he is the quarterback of the defense. I mean, he is the guy, and he is, the high energy guy, the motor that follows the ball, and we've not been able to replace him thus far. And I think, I know Malaluga is not popular here in town, but when you throw Vontaze and Malaluga both being out, and you try to replace them with, two different guys that are not as good or as experienced, you're gonna struggle. And it's unfortunate, but to me that's the truth. And then you've got, Atkins has been struggling to get healthy and play at his level a couple years ago, and everybody was excited about him last night, and then because he's almost there, and he tweaks it again. So I don't know. I mean, it's just I think our defensive backs have played pretty well most of the year. I think our defensive line has done a decent job of getting pressure when they have when the quarterback doesn't get it out of their hand within a second or two. But it was definitely an inability to stop the run last night. Like I said, they used 3 different backs and change the pace a little bit and hit you in the mouth a little bit, and it was effective.
So they've got 7 games left. We were talking to Jim Breach a little while ago. I think they got to get to 10 wins. I think you got to 10. I think 10 gets you in. Maybe 9, but certainly 10 gets you in, which means they got to go 5-2 on their final 7. You think they got 5 wins in their final 7 with 2 with Pittsburgh, trip to Cleveland, Denver here, got to go to New Orleans. I mean the landscape is not forgiving at this point, is it?
It's really not. I think they've put themselves in a corner right now where they have to, they've got to kind of not simply run the table, but they to win 5 out of 7 when you're playing in Denver, and you've got games at Cleveland and at Pittsburgh, which are tough places to play within the division. They've definitely made it tough on themselves. I think after 3 games in the year, we were ready to say, hey, Super Bowl. But at the same time, right now, we're trying to keep from falling in the toilet bowl right now. So it's just it's a situation where I think we really, we get a couple players back, we're going to be a different team. Joe Hayden definitely has AJ's number. We're only going to see him one more time. I think as AJ gets healthy, Sanu's established himself as a very solid number 2. If we could get a couple more guys back, I think, if Eifert comes back, I think we'll be fine. Gio gives us a whole different dimension, coming out of the backfield, I do not like him running up the middle. I like him getting on the edges.
Yeah.
So there's a few things like that. I think that, we can definitely run the table, and we could win 7 in a row here, but at the same time, we definitely made it tough on ourselves.
I know you work this 24/7, 365, but we are coming up on the holiday season. Kicks for Kids, which is your deal, and you've had it for many, many years, and it's a very successful charity. What do you have planned for the holiday season?
Yeah, it is our 20th year for Kicks for Kids, and we're still doing our part here in the community. We've got a lot of good volunteers and sponsors. The next thing we have right now is the Christmas party we're getting ready for, which is really a neat night where we have about 70 kids from all over the tri-state, and they've already written their letters to Santa, and Santa's going to come big for them, and we're going to have a big night, and we do it down at Paul Brown Stadium. So that's usually kind of the year-end capper. We've had a really solid year of helping kids. We just did our basketball camp with Tayshawn Prince this summer. We had our great outdoor adventure. So a lot of good things coming down the pike. But unfortunately, the need keeps getting greater every year. But Kicks for Kids basically has done a really good job for the last 20 years of just networking with different local businesses that want to give back to their own community.
And we have kicksforkids.com up on the screen right now. I'm just interested, Jim, if somebody wants to get involved either as a volunteer or perhaps corporately, or maybe somebody just wants to donate some money, what do they need to do?
Well, ultimately, I'm kind of old school. You can do the phone, which is the 859-331-8484. But if they want to go online, there's options that they can donate. If they want to email us, it comes into Chris, who is our program manager, and she'll find ways. We get different churches, we get different organizations who call us all the time and are looking for opportunities. We get high school kids who want service hours, and we have a lot of neat programs. We're actually just kicked off a program yesterday at a middle school here in Northern Kentucky. It's a Thanksgiving drive where last year the same school gave away, I think they raised enough to give away 1,200 meals here at Thanksgiving. So we just kicked that off yesterday. We're going to be filling that between now and Thanksgiving, but we're hoping to do between 1,200 and 1,500 meals for that. So there's always opportunities to give. That's where, like I said, I think Kicks for Kids has been effective of just giving local people. It's a grassroots nonprofit, and to give local people kind of a way to kind of plug in and offer whatever they have. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's their talent, but we're very appreciative of it, and just try to be good stewards of the money and the time that we get from people.
How about those Wildcats?
They started off strong, and right now they're kind of hovering. The basketball team, I'm
talking football. Come on, Doug, football. They still got some time here to make some stuff up. They're playing pretty well.
They need one more win, and obviously they're trying to go through this SEC. At least we're not playing the SEC West. We still got games against the SEC East, but got Georgia this week, got Tennessee coming, we got Louisville coming. So we've got some good games on the schedule.
They're young,
too. Got to give it the win.
Very young, and boy, that Tolles is a terrific quarterback. I love watching him.
Absolutely, Tolles has done a nice job. Yeah. James has done a great job getting better talent around him. So it's going to be, we're all excited about it, but obviously, I just got to get one more win.
Doug, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
All right, guys. You all have a good rest of the day.
Yes, sir. Doug Pelfrey.
Good guy.
Good man. One of the three Musketeers.
He's number 3 on the all-time Bengals scoring list. Jim Breach is number 1.
What was his number?
Doug?
Mm-hmm. What number did he wear?
9. Yeah.
So why doesn't he? He's got 8484 for the phone number. Why wouldn't he have 0909?
Maybe he's old school and just took whatever they issued.
Who do you think? Who's number 2
on the all-time scoring list?
Yes.
Horst Muhlman.
Nice. That's what I thought too, but no.
No. Corey Dillon.
Was my guess. No. The highest non-kicker is Pete Johnson, but it's Shane Graham.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Every time he misses a field, every time he misses a field goal, I feel good.
I'm the same way.
Last night was a big night. It was a night game. We all know that. But before the night game, there were a lot of people out tailgating. Mm-hmm. And among the tailgaters last night, amazingly, is a man that we like to refer to as our little Blinky. And that would be Mr. Satin. Let's take a look at his latest effort. That looked like a bad acid trip.
That was before the game. Can you imagine what it was like afterwards?
Here now, the director of that.
And the first time ever via Skype.
Via Skype is the director of that Fellini-esque movie, and that would be Mr. Satin. Mr. Satin, good morning.
Gentlemen, how are we doing this morning?
Good.
Trying to shake it off.
Now, so you have mirrors behind you, apparently.
Yeah, well, you know,
you in the
this
can?
morning reporting from the stalls. So we're doing a little early morning, rituals. It was a rough night last night. We've got our breakfast corn.
You should have dropped that off at the food drive last night. What are you doing?
Well, this is going next. This will be there. This can will probably be there. It's Kroger, so it's good. It was just a rough one, gentlemen. Rough one.
This is why I've been in the business for 40 years, right here.
This is what our careers have come to, is what you're saying?
Mr. Satin, let me ask you a question. When we see video like we just saw, is that real time? Are you actually running through a parking lot that quickly?
I wish I was that fast, but the Satins historically have been pretty fast. We had a lot of help here from our good buddy there, Brian Neese, helping put this together. And it was a cold weather, but a lot of people showed up, and it was nice to see. So we got some good stuff brewing from that stuff we're getting together. Oh, hold on a second. I got a courtesy flush. Let me get that out of the way. All right, here we go.
We here on the back bench appreciate that, Mr. Satin, just so you know.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Okay.
Maybe we could flush that effort away from last night.
Yeah, well, you were out there. You were out there in the tailgater land before the debacle began.
Right.
Spirits were obviously a little better at that point. Yes.
Yeah,
for several reasons.
It was a great atmosphere, and surprisingly too, the Browns travel well. They were there representing too. It was a good festive atmosphere, but who knew the debacle that was going to have when we can't show up on primetime games, and I heard chants of Jason Campbell, and I just couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe my ears or my eyes.
Mr. Satin of the Delhi Satins, apparently. What do you envision for the Bengals going forward now? Because they have 7 games left. They need 5 to get in the playoffs. Do you think that's doable from a mathematics point of view?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think what we need to do is we need to get some guys out of there and get some guys in there.
See,
this team,
see, that's Woody Hayes talking right there.
This team right now is, we're not going anywhere. We're going to be hanging around watching the Browns in the playoffs and not us. Right now I'm holding back tears amongst other things. So we've got to do something about this. I don't know. Everybody's hurt and banged up. So I don't, those excuses, is it coaching? I don't know. I mean, these guys have all the talent in the world, and to not be showing up is comical.
Oh, it's not funny.
No, that's what we like best. Finally, Mr. Satin, before we let you go, I'm just wondering if you see Andy Dalton at this point of the season getting better or getting worse. This is important now because this is a theme that we have today. Is he getting better in your opinion or getting worse?
2 weeks ago, I'm saying he's getting better. We're all praising him. You got the Dalton haters, but last night showed me with that display, I'm thinking he's getting worse, and I don't want to say it. I fighting back the tears over here, but I think he's getting worse. You guys, what do you guys think?
No, I think he's regressing. I do.
You do?
I defended him. I said all he had to do was make one. He had to start making plays, and he had that game a couple of weeks ago against Baltimore. He's starting to make plays, and then bang! All of a sudden, we get what we got this week and last week.
And I think you're entitled in this league to have a bad game here or there.
Yeah, but he's not had a really great game. See, I mean, it's the when you have like last night, then you expect something at the other end of the spectrum, and it just hasn't happened. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Satin.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Okay. See you Monday.
You bet. I'll see you guys then.
Thank you, Mr. Satin. Well, now we've arrived at the penultimate moment of this program. We welcome in from parts unknown, Mr. Wrestling 3. No, we welcome in Mike McCoy, the real McCoy. Mike, welcome to the show.
Turn out the lights, the party's over.
Waiting.
Dandy
The
Don.
wheels
is
on the
back.
bus go round and round, and Andy Dalton sucks.
So last night when all of this is unfolding, it was right in your wheelhouse, wasn't it? You were just
It sure was. But hey, listen, I'm gonna tell you something. Andy Dalton can't throw a football. Maybe he can throw this as a frisbee, because you can be all over the place with a frisbee. You know what I'm saying? Maybe he can throw that.
That's pretty heavy, man.
Well, that's all right. Maybe to get where it needs to go. You know what I'm saying?
Last
Throw it
thing
as a frisbee.
Last thing the real McCoy said to me as we were walking out, he's like, "There's going to be a blowout." That's the last thing he said to me.
Well, hold up. Stroutman, I want my money, man. Don't come talking about, oh, gosh, and all that old stuff, man. I told you what was going to happen about the defense. Didn't I tell you?
You did, yeah. I thought it'd be a blowout too, but I thought.
Oh, here we go.
I
See,
thought the Bengals were going to blow
that's what
them
these
out.
guys always do. You know, they this, that, and the other. You know, Andy Dalton was who he was last night.
You should have seen
He was
Stroutman killing the
worse.
pregame meal.
That was the worst.
Well, but Andy Dalton is what you see is what you get with him. Honestly.
It-
He's terrible.
It was historically bad last night. It was about as I said this. It was as bad an effort by a quarterback in the NFL as I've seen in my life.
Really? Through the clinger?
Everything
It
through
looked
Tampa
like,
Bay.
It looked like when a guy
everything.
gets. It looked like when a guy gets hurt and they bring in a second stringer who hasn't been on an NFL field before, or he had 5 snaps in his career. He didn't know what was going on.
He threw balls in the ground. He had things floating over guys. The guys are wide open to the flat. The ball's floating over their head into the first round. He had all indications of somebody that was on some sort of mind-numbing medication.
Tell me
Geno
something that I don't know. Didn't I tell you that? I told you about that. If there's cheese on the bone, bring your crackers. You're not listening to me.
Let me just say this.
The dude, hold it. Let me finish up here. Because you said
Yeah,
the best
quit
for last,
interrupting.
Okay? He was 10 for what? 38? 33?
33.
10 for 33. How many yards passing?
86.
Okay. Good quarterbacks, when they lose, at least give you 200 to 300 yards. It's not going to happen with this dude. How many interceptions?
3.
It should
Should
have
have
been
been.
4.
Hey, should have been 4 or 5. There was the one dropped right
Yeah,
down the
one
field.
guy had
Oh my God!
And the
Yeah.
tip
39
ball.
right in his.
Yeah, right in his
This
right in
is
his
the
pocket, but
worst a
dropped it.
quarterback has ever played for the Cincinnati
Oh, I
Bengals
agree.
since franchise history.
I agree.
And you guys are talking playoff.
Yeah.
Now go ahead. What were you going to say?
There was one guy. No, I remember one. This is
Playoffs.
Matt may remember this, but it was in '75. Their starting quarterback got hurt.
Which was Cook? Was that Cook?
No, it was after Cook.
No, Cook was like
Anderson
the
got
season.
hurt. His backup got hurt. They put a guy in named Wayne Clark. And all this guy did would hand. He had 3 passes in the game. He just kept handing off because Paul Brown didn't want him to throw the ball. But I'm telling you, this was the worst I've ever seen a quarterback in an NFL game. And I've been covering the NFL for 30-some-odd years.
So where do we go from here?
I'm going to go home. I don't know about you.
No, I'm talking the Bengals. Where do they go from here?
Well, you tell me.
I'm getting ready to tell you.
Well, they got 7 games left. They got to win 5 to get in the playoffs.
They
Can they
will
win
be
5?
lucky to be 500 about time they get back home because they get ready to go on the road, and they're going to be on the road for, what, a month or so?
3 weeks.
3 games.
They'll be lucky to be 500.
It is a
You know,
month in duration.
You know
but yes.
what's horrible about that road trip is they start New Orleans, which is the toughest place they're going to play.
Yes.
They go to Houston, where they haven't won.
Yes.
And then they go to Tampa. You get the Buccaneers at the back end of a 3-game road trip. To me, that's a setup game right there.
Turn out the lights, the party's over.
But okay, can we temper it by the fact that there's a lot of guys hurt?
Well, they are, but I
Can we
don't, know
temper
I
this?
don't know how long. But they're decimated by injuries, and I think when they get healthy, they'll win some more games. They always do what you don't expect. They'll win a couple of games you don't think they'll win.
And
But I don't know
AJ
if they're getting to 10.
I think AJ's hurt still.
But that's part of the game, guys.
It is.
I know, but
Healthy,
it is part of the
lucky,
game, but
and
it's not-
good. Don't come in here with this crap about them
I'm not-
being hurt. It should be somebody to step up and be the next man in line. Stop making excuses for those clowns.
Especially when we were saying after the first 3 weeks, this is the most talented team in football.
I read on Sports on Earth, the website, Kenny Arthur did a story yesterday, and he rated the most overrated players in the NFL,
Okay.
and he put Mohamed Sanu on that list.
Really?
Mohamed Sanu, who had a great run without Dalton or without Green, but has not. I mean, last night, seven times he's targeted, he only catches 2.
Yeah, but
20 yards.
I mean, his quarterback was horrible.
Yeah.
So who's the leader on the team now?
I think it's this Nico Johnson dude, because I've never heard of him. He's my team leader.
Well, it sure the hell is not Dalton. Did you see all the discombobulated things? I don't know how to spell it, but you see all that was going on the sideline and stuff? Guys in each other's face and all that?
I know.
Yeah.
No harmony and nothing.
Disarray. disarray is what
So the wheels on the bus go round and round.
Carson Palmer wasn't a leader, and Chad Johnson got up in his face on national TV. Same thing happened last night. I think Andy Dalton.
Gary Reasons.
I think he's tough. I think Andy Dalton's a tough guy. I think he's an accurate thrower. Last night, notwithstanding, I just don't know if he's the kind of guy who's going to take a team on his back and say, "I got you, let's go."
No, that is.
I just don't think he's that guy.
Like last night. Whether Mike wants to admit it, they do have a lot of injuries, but what he did wasn't because of injuries.
No,
he collapsed under the pressure of the situation. He knew everybody was paying attention, and he couldn't throw it in the ocean.
And how much of this? No. Again, I want to make sure we examine all angles. But how much of this is Marvin Lewis? How much does Marvin get these guys corkscrewed so much that they can't perform?
But Ken, it doesn't matter if it is or it isn't. In the NFL, you don't get another opportunity. You don't get the opportunities he had.
Right.
He's the one ultimately at the end of the day responsible. Period. On every other NFL team in the league.
And they had
every other NFL.
No, you're right. You're right.
Hey,
so 100% is Marvin Lewis.
They had Whitworth mic'd up last night, for those of you that watched it on TV. And usually when they do that, it's really cool because you get to hear just some ferocious, gusto, something on the sideline of guys who are trying to pick up their teammates. And frankly, anything I heard from Whitworth or Dalton was just, all right, guys, we're not out. We're not out. All right, guys, we're not out. How is that supposed to get me as a player who's down in the ditches here? How's it supposed to get me motivated?
Come back to when Boomer came back at the end of his career and like how much command he took of that team and of that huddle. How much better they were at that.
That's exactly what Boomer was a good leader. He wasn't
a very good quarterback.
Correct. Well, he wasn't a physically gifted quarterback like a Carson Palmer or something like that. But he knew how to go out there and grab those guys by the throat and say, listen, this is what we're going to do. Pay the effing attention. Yeah. Let's go. You know, and he at least sometimes, and that's what all quarterbacks at times lose it, and they can't perform on a given day.
Look at Brady. But Brady loses after 3 incompletions.
Right. But I'm just saying they have games where they look like they don't know what they're doing. You know, but there's times when they just have everything clicking, and you can tell it's all going. They're 5 steps ahead in their head, and you never see that on his face. He's just hoping it gets caught by Green again.
Just to piggyback off of what PJ said about Wentworth or whatever.
Mike agrees with me?
This dude is leading the huddle. He gets more penalties called on him for holding, offsides, and the whole 9 yards. So how are you going to let a guy like that take over and lead you into a game?
Where did that bag come from? Like, was there one like you couldn't get that was like?
There was a bag
what
of
happened
tomatoes.
was
you've been waiting all day to take that off. You've been waiting all day to take that off.
And I got my pullouts out too. So
get your gold in.
Smirk.
So, but no, to be honest, and I'm going to get off of here. The Bengals got problems. They got real problems. I'm telling you, don't be shocked. Well, I'm serious. When they come back and they're below 500.
Well, they're not going to win at New Orleans, and I don't think they're going to win at Houston. So that'll put them at 5-5-1. I think they could win at Tampa, and then they're going to get steamrolled by Denver.
Okay, so who wins the division now?
Probably Pittsburgh. Yeah. They're on a roll. If you go by the last few weeks,
I think Pittsburgh and the Ravens are going to be the teams fighting it out. Yeah. I still do. I don't know if I don't believe in Cleveland.
Don't count out my Brownies. I'm telling you that with that defense they got, they run the ball good, and he doesn't make many mistakes. If you remember, the Browns have lost by 3 points or more, other than when they played Jacksonville. They killed them, but other than that, it's been a 3-point game loss.
They're playing a last-place schedule, which, given last year, I understand that. But I think they're done with Pittsburgh, right? They played Pittsburgh twice.
Yes.
They got one more left with Baltimore.
Yes.
And I think that's in Cleveland.
Yes.
Okay.
And then they play Cincinnati.
And they play Cincinnati one more time. So they got 2 division games left.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know who else they play, but they're at 5 wins now, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so they only got to come up with 5 wins.
No, Cleveland, they're 6 wins.
So they need to come up with 4.
They have Texans, Falcons, Bills, Colts, and Panthers outside of the 2 division games. So it's kind of a toss-up there.
Yeah,
pretty weak for schedule there.
Yeah,
Brian, you better get my money back there too, man.
Brian's
you forget
not
that
here,
12-4.
Libby's here for Brian, and she ain't got no
Libby,
money
tell
for
me you
you.
better have my money.
Let's go around the horn. Let's go around the horn here, so we can just because I really want a consensus here. We'll start in the back bench there, and we'll start with Libby, the silent Libby. Do the Bengals win 10 this year? Do they get 5 more wins in the remaining 7 games? What do you think, Libby?
I'm going to have have to say that I defer my answer to whatever the real McCoy says. I have learned that the smart thing to do on this show is to just agree with whatever he says.
Wow.
There you go. So that's a no from Libby.
Okay.
Okay.
Matty Ice?
I'd say probably not.
No.
Yeah. I'd like to think they could do it. I thought they would a few games ago, but no.
Orange Glove?
Maybe 9.
Mike?
10 wins now. No.
PJ?
I don't see them getting to 10, but I can see 9. The Steelers are going to come down to earth. Come on, that kid, you can't throw 6 touchdowns.
I still say this team does.
Yeah, when you say
as
down
soon
to
as
earth,
you
did you see
think
the Tampa game?
As soon as you think this team is as horrible as we think they are now, they've done it in the past. Then they come up and they win games you don't think they're going to win. They lose games you don't think they're going to lose, and then I don't know if they're going to win 5 out of the next 7, but they'll win a couple games, and you'll just be like, where was that the night we played Cleveland, or where was that the day we played Indianapolis?
Is it me, or is it on the first drive you can tell what kind of game it's going to be?
I kind of felt that way
first
too.
play.
I mean, really, every game you watch, if they have a really good drive, they score some points, they're probably going to win the game.
It's because.
But if they go out and do what they did first drive, they're going to get slaughtered. I mean, it just seems like it always happens that way. You know?
Chris, did I get to 10?
I don't think so. It's tough. I mean, I always say in this league you are what you earn. In the first 3 weeks they were really good, but it's how they're playing right now collectively. I don't think so. I don't know if they get to 9.
What do you think?
Right, 9's a maybe.
H to the hell no.
Okay. I don't think they get.
Be,
I think they may get to 8. They may get to 9, and I don't think 9, 5-1 is going to get you in.
They end the year with they end the year with Denver at home and Pittsburgh on the road.
Yeah, that's tough.
The tie killed them.
Well, yeah.
The tie killed them, but that's going to be they're going to have to be playing good football to have any chance in either one of those games.
They got 7 left. Aren't 5 of those 7 on the road?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I will say this
I'm
yesterday.
a season ticket holder. I got
pregame.
2 tickets left.
They're not going to get 10 wins.
Guys, they were saying yesterday that if this was a typical Sunday game, though, there would have been 3 players that would have been active. So they were saying Smith, probably Gio, were 2 of them. I can't remember the third. So maybe they are on the way of getting
Could be.
healthier.
But I don't think it's going to help in New Orleans.
No,
What's the magic question?
Hey, Andy Dalton
sucks.
He's right this week.
Yeah.
I still like it.
Redefines it.
And we're on. Listen, you got to download this app. You heard about this app? This WCPO.
It's on my phone.
Yes.
You got to download this thing and listen to it on the way into work, and then you can watch it online live, and you can, for your downloading pleasure later on, you can time shift us and watch us like at 3 o'clock in the morning if you want. We're back on the air again Monday at 7 a.m. These are the fine folks that make it happen. Furniture Fair, we love you. Thanks for the great furniture that we get to sit on here in the WCPO basement. That's the Flying Pigskin for this Friday. Fear not, more pigs fly, more Bengals talk Monday at 7 and only on WCPO.com.